In the past 20 years, the number of women participating in the workforce in India has dropped from 35% down to about 23%. And that places India about in the bottom 20 in the world or so. What's responsible for this trend and what can be done about it? Joining us today on the Charcha-cast, it's Anupama Kapoor. Anupama, thank you for being here today.
Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Our pleasure. You're the founder of Reboot, which is a community organization dedicated to helping women get back into the workplace.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit more about your organization, and then maybe we can start getting into the meat of things on women in the workplace.
That's correct. So, I founded Reboot primarily to help women get back to work. Some of the reasons behind how Reboot was set up was my own personal experience, my lived experience growing up as a young girl, and also as a woman professional who had to take a break because my kid was very young. So it's something I'm very passionate about, and I identify deeply with what women face. So we have a pan-India community, an online community, where of course we have these conversations on a daily basis. So it's like a sisterhood, and we try and bring them as many opportunities as possible from organizations that are progressive and are willing to give women a second chance. And we have mentoring and other upskilling opportunities to help them ready for this transition.
So then let's get right into it and talk about women in the workforce, right? Why, in your view, are the number of women participating in the workforce in India, why is that number going down, which is sort of a very unusual trend, right? You think over the last 20 years with the rise of the internet and we're more socially connected, education rates are up, literacy rates are up, all those things would seem to indicate that more women would be participating in the workforce, but it's the opposite. Why?
Right. And to add to what you're saying, I mean, this whole prediction about the Indian economy should also contribute to a larger share of the workforce, but it's pretty unbelievable, you're right, how low it is. Now, there are multiple factors. I could say that it's also the way our society is structured. It's a socio-cultural issue about women working, but it's all, there are multiple reasons. So it starts from how our society wants, women to be, what are the expectations around women bringing up their children, what is the status of women in society today, and I'm sorry to state, and not that it's something we don't know, but women don't really have an equal status in India's society today. So there are multiple things that women are expected to do which men are not expected to do, and to do those or to play out those roles, women have to unfortunately not be in the workforce or to drop out of the workforce. In fact, one of the other reasons why the data looks as bad as it does is because you're looking at data both for the formal sector and the informal sector. Sure. So you're looking at urban women and rural women. And when you're looking at capturing this data, especially of, say, family farms or family enterprises in the rural part of India, how you collect the data, how the data is reported is also an issue. So to give you a quick example, there is a family farm and there is one produce that the whole family is geared towards making, then the census is collected. Now this woman in the house is contributing towards the family business, right? And therefore the man is working, and while she may be doing a whole lot of ancillary stuff that goes towards this business of the family, she's not reported as working.
Okay.
So that also skews the data a little bit.
Sure, but does she get sort of internal credit within the family for being part of the family, the farm workforce?
Yeah, and I was going to say that. That's the other reason why, all this is also indicative of the status women have in society today. And also, when you say society, it's not just that the government wants to do it and the people are not really ready. I think it's a mix. The government is also made up of people. And these people are also, deeply imbibed with their cultural traditions about what they think of women. So in fact, if you look at how we define work today, the fact is that any transaction that takes place that has an economic return is defined as work. So if you look at that traditional way of defining work, anything a woman does in her own house, becomes non-productive.
Huh.
And the fact is that Indian women, if they are working out of the house, they definitely have a double shift or a double burden. So when they come back home, they have to immediately get into the tasks of the household. These could range from groceries, cooking, children's homework, child care, elder care, anything, all of it actually, which men are not really doing or are expected to do.
Sure, and I think I take you at your word, and that's obviously that's a very sort of, that's the way it's been for many years, and this is a very traditional sort of societal thing. But what strikes me is that I feel like there's been a lot of new information put forth into the public. There's been people like yourself, right, at the forefront of this type of a thing, yet the numbers still decrease, right? It just doesn't make sense somehow.
Right. See, it's a big puzzle, and there are multiple pieces to it.
Yeah.
So, for example, one piece is that for a woman to work outside the house, everything in the house needs to run smoothly. Now, let's not even talk about the household stuff. Let's talk about just the children.
Okay.
And do we have the infrastructure today, good quality infrastructure, where a woman or a family can leave her child for the whole long day and be sure that the child will be well looked after, will be safe, and can she then contribute 100% to work, knowing that my child is in good hands? So we don't have that infrastructure. If you look at Indian work days, they are not like the West. So nobody sort of packs up at 4, and I know it's not black and white all over the world, but we just seem to have this culture of 14-hour work days. Add to that the commute. So if your workplace is not close to the house, you're in a city like Mumbai, for example, you're looking at least 3 hours on the road.
Sure.
And 3 hours of your daily life going away, which is taking away from the household, from the children, etc., etc. So the moment a husband earns enough, and you're now saying about 30s maybe, and depending on the career path the husband has taken, the family makes a conscious decision that anyway the woman is earning less because there is no pay parity in India. So they make a decision that the woman will drop out of the workforce, so that all these other pieces of life can be done well, or she'll take a part-time job, or she'll decide to work from home, or whatever it is that they need to run this unit on a daily basis.
So would you say that then in sort of the traditional family, any work that a woman does outside the home is sort of considered a luxury or a bonus?
Yes, because in our society and in all patriarchies of the world, actually the world is, the way society is structured, it is a patriarchal system, and both women and men are products. So what happens is that the man is considered the breadwinner, the woman is the caregiver, and this is true across, right? The difference, say for example in the developed part of the world, 2 hours may be that with lesser people, you have lesser help around the house. So you're doing more jobs yourself, and therefore men seem to contribute more, say in the US or Europe or wherever. In India, we have this concept of help. And people depend on help for a lot of these things, and therefore women then have to manage the help. Women have to make sure that everything is running smoothly, whether they're in the house or out.
Sure, and Reboot is, you're primarily focused, as I understand it, on getting women back in the workforce once they've dropped out. And I assume for the sort of traditional, motherhood or getting married, or in fact, I think you have a 3 M's thing that you like to quote. So what, motherhood, marriage, and
mobility.
Mobility,
yeah.
Right.
It's actually not something that I coined, but it's something we use very often in this space.
Okay.
That it's motherhood, mobility, and marriage, the 3 reasons why women quit. There are multiple other reasons also. So if I'm not getting paid enough, or if I don't have the environment, ultimately you have to balance it out. If I'm paying more to the childcare and I'm getting not much in hand after paying for the childcare, what's the point of my working then, right? So it is a balance after all. Is the working environment fair? Is it safe for me? Is there sexual harassment in this? So any trigger of that sort will tilt your equilibrium anyway towards, to hell with it,
Sure, but so what are the unique challenges faced by women who are trying to get back into the workforce, who have dropped out for whatever reason, and maybe they've been out for 5 years? Well, what challenges do they face?
Right, I think the biggest challenge is that the longer you're away from the workforce, the lower your confidence is. Your ability to be able to go back and deliver. So the confidence takes a hit. The other thing that happens is that, I mean, look at the rate of change around us today. We live in a VUCA world, and things change so fast. Businesses change, technologies change, and if you look at that, then your knowledge also becomes obsolete. So if you're away from the workforce for long, and this is true especially of the IT sector, you know, now today you're talking about AWS, tomorrow you'll be talking about, so suddenly Siebel is almost gone and now you're looking at only Salesforce. So people in general and women in particular have to continuously upskill themselves to be able to be lucrative or, you know, so that to be attractive to the market.
Well, and there's part of that too, and again, I'm extremely conscious that I'm a man talking to a woman about women in the workforce, right? So I want to be sort of respectful and cognizant of that. But you mentioned your skills get obsolete after several years and stuff, right? So talk a little bit about the responsibility of a employer and of the person trying to get back into the workforce to, you know, make sure that you are still qualified, right?
Right.
I mean, if you haven't kept up on your skills for 5 years, does that employer have a responsibility, some sort of societal responsibility to hire you anyways because it's for the good of God and country type of thing? Or, you know, where is that balance?
Well, I would love if that was the case. I would love it, but it's not so. So because, you know, ultimately the way organizations are structured today, we are in a capitalist economy largely in the world today, even though in India it's a bit of a mix, and whatever you do as a business is driven by the bottom line. So today, if you're talking about diversity and inclusion so much in our country, it is because there is belief and there is enough research and study and data available to tell us that there is definite benefits for an organization in terms of diversity, not just in terms of women, but across the gender spectrum, across all kinds of people with disabilities, people with different educational backgrounds, different personality types, everything. So yes, while there is an element of social justice, there is definitely a profitability aspect to these new trends that we see in corporate India. But having said that, I think the corporate definitely is in an advantageous position. It has the wherewithal to influence a large number of people and therefore the society. They say that it is a microcosm of society, but it can actually exert influence the other way. So I think when I last checked, there were about 6 lakh plus limited companies in India.
Okay.
So imagine the kind of employee base you have, and if you actually mean and do and run initiatives, they are going to have a larger impact. So it's not just for returning women. If you make a workplace inclusive for all, the chances are that returning women will also find it easier to come back. So a returning woman, for example, if she's coming back after maternity, and if she has a young child, she will need breast pumping rooms. She will need maybe a creche in the organization. And our government has done some work in this space to make sure that the maternity leave is longer and the creche is mandatory. And of course, recently we had the Sexual Harassment Act, which was ratified in 2013 as mandatory. So all these little things go a long way. But there is more. So for example, creches in India are a serious concern because when government provides, I mean, as long as the corporate provides, it's okay. But outside that, the quality of the creches is really poor. And again, you're looking at just maybe the white collar jobs. What about the blue collar jobs? What about informal labor? I mean, the sight of women at construction sites in India with their children playing right next to them is a very common one, right? And I'm sure it's pretty common in many developing economies of the world. So the corporate has a big role, and I think one of the biggest things or the foremost things they need to do is walk the talk.
But I don't want to relitigate affirmative action necessarily, but just to go through the thought exercise, maybe if someone's thinking about it themselves. If I'm a construction company and I'm hiring carpenters, right? Why should I be obligated to hire someone who's going to ultimately be more expensive for me to employ, right? If I have to, and again, I just want to go through the exercise with you. I have to provide, daycare for children or accommodate a different schedule, something like this, right? If I hire a woman in the position as a carpenter versus if I hire a man, right? It's easier, right? So what do you say to that employer?
Right. So there are many who feel this way, and the smaller companies, in fact, feel the pinch of 6 months maternity leave, etc.
Sure.
But the fact is that you do gain by having a workforce which has a larger women presence. I mean, like I said, these studies have been done. Women, when there are more women in the workforce, or when your employee base is more diverse, you are likely to have the profitability has been historically shown to be higher. You bring in a different perspective which has not been there. You have to mainstream gender in all aspects. So, for example, we have some of the largest FMCG companies here, and we have beauty cosmetic brands for the CEOs are men, and I find that slightly problematic. So, maybe a woman will know how to sell cosmetics better, for example,
Okay, but just to play devil's advocate, you find it problematic that a man is heading a cosmetics company, but would you find it problematic if a woman was heading a construction company or an IT firm or something?
It'll be a new thing.
Yeah.
It's worthy to find out. I mean, construction is not necessarily a man's job, right? Whereas traditionally we have said beauty or products are used. Or let's to take your example further, let's not talk about cosmetics. Let's talk about, say, menstrual pads. That's something very specific to women,
Sure.
right? So, and even in this, there were departments that were run just by men till very recently.
Okay.
So the thinking is changing, but it's changing in pockets. And the other thing you said about why should they hire women, the fact is that women are very easily assumed to be responsible for the procreation and advancement of the humankind, right? So who is bearing that responsibility, and what is the cost of that responsibility? It cannot be camouflaged in just the glorification of motherhood and this whole notion of sacrifice and duty, and women must do that. So today women are also therefore taking the call of not becoming mothers, and do we respect that then?
Do you want to see reservation for women?
I would love to. I would love to see that, because women are a minority in the Indian workforce, and I think that till some time, till we reach a point of time where we can say that yes, the number is good. I'm not saying compromise on merit, but I think we should really look at reservations so that we are able to address the multiple biases that exist across various life stages in an organization.
So let's talk about cultural norms and biases, and I want to make sure I get the number right here, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and look at my notes. So a survey on social attitudes, this is from 2016, so this is just a couple years ago, 40 to 60% of men and women believe married women should not work if the husband earns reasonably well.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Right. So, as I said earlier, patriarchy is a social system. Both men and women are products of the social system. So, when I say patriarchy and men are patriarchal, women are also patriarchal. So, when I want to sacrifice my career for my child, to look after my child well, or to make sure that the entire system is working smoothly, I am ascribing to that patriarchy. Patriarchy is actually one of the most well-designed systems ever, because what they've done is they've they have on one hand given the status of the breadwinner, for example, to the man, and at the same time of the caregiver to the woman, and then they've said the caregiver is like a mother. She is like a maternal figure or a mother figure or a goddess figure, and it's glorified. So that is why becoming a mom is such a big thing for a woman. I mean, we are defined by, are you a mother or not? So if I meet somebody who's in their 30s who's not married, or who's married and doesn't have children, it's almost like, wow, I mean, it's an anomaly. It's not normal. So because motherhood is so first of all, it's a very big thing for a woman to get married in Indian society. Marriage seems to be the goal.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's motherhood. And if you don't have children for one reason or another, you are perpetually at the receiving end.
Right. And so the question, you're a 35-year-old woman, you don't have children. The question you're going to get asked is why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you have children? Or why do you have just one?
Why do you have?
Why are you not married?
I only have one child, and I get the why. Just
Yeah, I used to. I have only one son.
when's the next one coming? Right? It's probably not.
Yeah.
So fine. What do you say though to people who? Because the statistic I just quoted was like 50% of people feel like women shouldn't work outside the home if the husband, in this case, earns reasonably well, right? And one argument that people will make is that, especially in India, every year 2 crore new people come into the job market, right? And just, again, go through the thought exercise with me a little bit. If the job is a luxury for the woman whose husband is earning, that's a livelihood for that new entrance to the job market, right? So that represents a whole family that person could take care of.
Right.
What do you say to that?
Yeah, I've heard this a lot. So there are 2 parts to your question. The first is, why does a woman also believe that if the man can earn well, then I don't need to? And it's again, as I spoke earlier, about the imbibed patriarchy, because women also have the reflected glory of a breadwinner who is earning enough and giving her therefore a higher status to take care of the family. She has ascribed to that patriarchal model. That is why she's agreeing with this. That's why she wants her man to earn enough first. Right. This is slightly complex, but that's how it's working on your psyche. The other aspect is, and it's something that gets thrown at me also a lot, is this whole zero-sum game.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a zero-sum game, and we are supposed to be the world's largest democracy. We have a very young population, so we should have the jobs for everybody. And that's a slight dichotomy for me sometimes. On one hand, we have high unemployment. On the other hand, there are so many jobs which are not filled because there aren't the right kind of skill sets available. So these are things that we are grappling with as a nation, and yes, we should find answers to, but it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. And the fact is that when women become economically independent, what happens is they're able to attain an agency, an autonomy which they previously lacked. They're able to make decisions about themselves, look after themselves, and when women look after themselves and do well, families do well, communities do well, economies do well.
Yeah, but how do you change that perception, right? Like how do you move a conversation and move societal attitudes? Like it feels like an enormous challenge.
Yeah, it's the hardest part. And something I've learned in the course of my work. So I started working with returning women, and then I realized it's not just the women that need the work, it's also the corporate workplace, it's also the people in the workplace, because Indian workplaces are meant for men. They're designed for men. And so for example,
how is a workplace designed for men?
So see, when you give the man the breadwinner role, his primary job is to make the money, right? So it doesn't matter if he's spending 14 hours of the day there. So if you were able to have 8-hour work days for everybody, right? If you didn't take pride in the fact that, I have 14-hour work days, everybody could be home together, doing things for the house and doing things outside. And
what is the, and this is a little off track, but this is just, I guess, my own personal curiosity. What is this thing with this sort of work martyrdom? That I work 16 hours a day and like I kill myself every day and stuff. Like what is that about?
And it's just not that. It's also, I do 16 hours a day and you're just sitting at home.
So in that conversation, okay.
Yeah.
So it gives you some sort of sense of like superiority, but my work has more worth or value.
Right. So this is a bit of an older work ethic also, and of course it's not that it doesn't exist anymore, it exists in large pockets, but the fact is that millennials are now looking at things differently. India's young want a lot more out of life than just the workplace, and that's why you see so many conversations and so much of talk about the gig economy, about flexible working, and that's a space that works well for women too.
Do you foresee a time when the concept of a stay-at-home dad or the man as sort of the caregiver role becomes, I won't say embraced, but socially acceptable?
Right. This is something I do with Equal Half in Reboot. We created a platform called Equal Half when we realized that we need to also work with men.
Yeah.
It's, you just can't have a room, fill it up with women and talk to them about equality and economic independence. Men need to be a part of that conversation to understand women's lived realities. Because unless you've had that experience, you will always tend to undermine or not understand my experience. Therefore, you need to be in the room for a conversation with me. And through Equal Half, we do research, we do advocacy, we do workshops, and it's not just my belief, but it's my stated goal that I want to reach a point where men are taking pride in being caregivers too.
Yeah.
In India, we have made so many strides in terms of women doing things that were hitherto unheard of in sports, in space, in all kinds of things. The other day I saw a video of a young woman in Kerala, a student in college, who was controlling the football like maybe Pele in her burqa. That was amazing, that was an amazing sight. And she said, the whole school was stunned when she was doing this, but she said, we don't even have a boys team. So girls and women are doing things that were never done before, but we are not focusing enough on the boys. We need to make sure that our boys take up careers which are complementary. You can't always, we need to look at the whole model of masculinity different. How do we look at manhood? How do we define manhood? This is not macho enough, or he's walking a certain way, so he must be gay. All these thoughts come from this assumption that being male and being able-bodied is the center of the universe and everybody else is a lesser being. So whether you are in the West, where this male would be white, and if you're in India, this male would be Hindu, this majoritarian, toxic, hegemonic, I should say, masculinity is it really needs to be changed, because that's what you also see coming out in violence in so many places. And you in fact have global organizations that are working on things like this. So I do see, and I'm working daily towards a goal where towards reaching a point where men are actively involved, they are stay-at-home fathers, and they are not disrespected for being stay-at-home fathers.
So, speaking of organizations, let's chat a little bit here in the few minutes we have left about Reboot and some of the stuff that you're doing right now. You mentioned the equal. I'm sorry, it was equal
half.
Equal half. Thank you. How do people find you? I mean, if I'm a woman looking to get back into the workforce, and you're obviously a resource for that, how do I find you? How do I know about you? How do you reach out to women? Sort of talk a little bit about Reboot.
Right. So primarily, Reboot was born on the social media. So we have a good presence on Facebook, and we are there on all the social media like LinkedIn and Twitter and all that. So to reach us, you have to just type reboot.net.in or equalhalf.com, and you can find us. We are on Twitter too, and we do a wide variety of stuff. In fact, we are now working with schools as well, because
We're working with school. Okay, what kind of schools?
So I'm open to the kind of schools. It could be private schools, or it could be public, or it could be municipal schools. The idea really again came from when I started with men, and when you're talking to 40-something leaders in a corporate, you realize that what you need is a mind which is still porous.
So at one point, that 40-year-old in the corporate was a 15-year-old sitting in a classroom somewhere.
Right. So while we want to work with the men, we also have to work with the youngsters, because they're still open to new ideas and they haven't embraced society, the social norms and the conditioning as 40-year-olds have, for example.
So what are you telling a 15-year-old? When you go to a classroom and it's full of 15-year-olds, assuming you can get their attention, what are you saying to them? What are you telling them?
We talk to them about stereotypes, about don't walk like a girl, or this is a subject that a girl needs to take or a boy needs to take. Boys can't take home science or cooking, and girls can't take electrical gadgets. And by the way, when I went to school, I said nothing doing with home science. I had electrical gadgets. Before I passed out of school, I knew how to make an iron or electric board. So I was always like that. So I don't understand this. In fact, I'm the other way around. I can't cook much. So
But so do you? Well, I don't know how to put this. Do you feel guilt around that? Like, you know.
Smart question, Nick.
Is that a thing?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do feel a little guilty, and again, that's a part of the Indian, socio-cultural working on my mind. Especially when I see my friends churning out nice baked cupcakes and healthy bakes for the kid, I do feel a little guilty. But that's it. It's temporary. I don't invest myself too much into it.
But isn't that interesting? That I mean, this is sort of an area where you focused your life in, but yet still, like, there's this little twinge, right? I mean, like, that's the power of.
Right. So I think the beauty lies in introspection and realizing. So there are some things about me personally, I know I am ascribing, this means I am ascribing to patriarchy, but I'm conscious of it. Okay. On a daily basis, slowly, you change it. So, because you're married, I mean, I'm married and I have a son. So out of the family of 3, 2 are the other gender.
Yeah.
So I have to, I'm not willing to give up my family because I'm a feminist and men are my enemy. And men are not the enemy, men are just an equal half.
Well, I have a wife and a daughter, so I have the other equal half problem, and I won't give up my masculinity for the name of feminism, but it's been interesting having a little girl and seeing her grow up and thinking about some of these issues and how to talk to her about some of these things.
Right. And to pick up what you said, feminism is also not about wanting to give up wanting men to give up their masculinity.
Yeah, you know what? That's you're right. That was an off the cuff dumb thing to say.
Not really, but see, these are the little things that we are made of, and we are trying to make that change in our behavior, in our thinking, and it does come out. It comes out with me too. So it's not like I've evolved and I'm now this on the other side of the fence. It's not like that.
So let's go ahead and leave it there, revealing my own inherent sexism at the end of the show. Anupama Kapoor, founder of Reboot, very interesting organization, doing a lot of interesting work around getting women back into the workforce, but also educating young people, men, on a very important topic. And we appreciate you being here and all the work you do.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you, Apoorv.
Yes, thank you, Apoorv and Priyanka, behind the scenes for all your hard work today. And that'll do it for this episode of Charcha-cast. I'm Nick Novak.